Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to 5 summer traditions I only encountered after moving to America. I mean, summer traditions throughout America may vary because certain regions are warmer, especially in the summer. I always think of Phoenix when it's hot places. You probably can't really have any traditions in summer because it's just so hot. But overall, I guess they sort of vary from place to place throughout the US. And I assume also, based off the title, vary from the UK as well. I guess things like having barbecues, going to the beach, things like this. But yeah, we're gonna see what these traditions are. My throat. God damn, man. And yeah, my plaster's coming off, bro. So annoying. Yeah, and see pretty much. But let's jump into this reaction and compare how it is to the UK. And that's pretty much it. Let's jump into it. Oh, that's the wrong one.
Summertime has come to the Northern Hemisphere, and back when I lived in England, this came with barbecues, donkey rides at the beach, and 99 flakes.
Hell yeah, man.
But after moving to the United States, I discovered countless summertime traditions I never knew existed. So join me on this sizzling day in June to find out what I'm going on about. But first, a thunderstorm, because this is the Midwest.
I tell you what, I absolutely love like when it's been so hot, and then I love it to a degree actually when it's been so hot and then it just like there's a bit of thunder and lightning and rain and etc. because I don't know, hot weather just brings that. But I also hate it when it's at night and then it makes the humidity unbearable. But there is a point where it's just great just to sort of have this relief of hot air, hot dry air, you know, with thunderstorms and stuff. Satisfying.
Yesterday's downpour got me thinking about another liquid-based phenomenon that Americans experience at this time of year: swimming pools.
Oh.
This is
not even a liquid, is
particularly
it?
true in the sense of pool parties, and these are like regular
Pool parties is the least British thing I've ever heard of. I mean, there's probably like rich people that do them in the summer, but yeah, pool parties in the UK are not a thing whatsoever.
parties, just with lots of scantily clad people. So a lot like regular parties. That was a joke, Mum. But pool parties aren't really a thing in England. You might be thinking, ooh, Lawrence, why's that? Is it because you don't have swimming pools in the UK? Of course we do. Do you think my childhood badges just earned themselves? No, it's just that outdoor residential swimming pools are a bit harder to come by. After all, most of us just don't have the yard space, or the weather, or the money. But on that last point, I've learned that Americans have a cheat code. You see, when I saw these things in movies, I used to think that pool parties were reserved for rich people. But here's something that you might not know about me. Back when I was making just above the US minimum wage, I lived at not one, but 2 different apartment complexes that threw pool parties. Unfortunately, this was from a time before I documented every second of my life, so there's no actual footage of me in my swimming trunks. However, ChatGPT incorrectly thinks that I probably look like this, and that I somehow invited Uncle Toby, my wife's cousin Chad, Chainsaw Jim, and Suburban Sue. All I remember is this obnoxious drunk who thought it would be funny to do a cannonball right in front of me. His parents grounded him soon after that. Speaking of crowded areas, they say that the average person has 8 tabs open at any given time. Video.
Ads?
Rang downward.
Still a bag, baby.
Minus the Ariel, bookmark, and laps and even my views and my block description below. Here's something that I often witness in America, but not so much in Britain: block parties.
Oh yeah, I don't really think block parties are a thing in the UK either.
It's not uncommon during a walk with the puppies. What doing, Heidi? That I turn toward a street only to be blocked off by the words "road closed." Such restrictions span 1 block and contain a bouncy castle, several humans, and 5 screaming kids.
What? So what, they just book off the road?
But to the extent that block parties do exist in Britain, Brits are more likely to call them street parties because block in this sense still hasn't caught on in Britain. Furthermore, British street parties are usually reserved for major royal landmarks or the end of your average world war. In America, they're reserved for Saturdays, and this country is home to all kinds of block parties, like the
That is
hip-hop
great,
variety.
because realistically, it's what, for like neighbours all to like chat and stuff like that. Maybe that's also like the cultural differences in terms of like America. Neighbours actually talk to each other. In the UK, you all have neighbours that you talk to. If you're lucky that you have like neighbours that you get on with and stuff, or you just don't talk to them at all. Like, yeah.
that emerged in the 70s to a basic community cookout. In fact, one year, my wife and I accidentally gate crashed an Ed Sheeran tribute act. Don't look at me like that. He was blocking access to Kroger, which really makes you rethink the meaning of block party.
Yeah, it was a good one.
In a few short days, the United States celebrates its 249th birthday, and I used to think that for its age it looked quite good, until I realised that this is probably due to all of the Botox. Either way, one thing that you can count on at this time of year is our 4th of July parades.
Yeah, I guess it's summertime, isn't
They're
it?
a bit like block parties, except in this instance, fire trucks are just there for aesthetic purposes. Basically, people flank the streets while large vehicles rev their engines, reminding everyone of America's freedoms and traffic pollution. I've been to several of these now, but history has not been kind to the version of me that flexed a Union Jack in the early days. Even my American family members sought revenge many years later. But parades marking America's independence from the British are surprisingly not very common in Britain. Actually, this is sort of true of parades in general, unless the king decides to open a hospital or 11 people win a...
We do have parades sometimes. Like, even my city has parades every so often, but it's not like... Actually, I guess it is a summertime thing. Parades are quite a summertime thing, aren't they? So I guess in the summer we do, but I assume in the US you probably have more.
Trophy. So, what have we learned from the first half of this video? That Americans will throw a party for just about anything. And where there are parties, there are party games. And one of those is a game that I'd never heard of, called cornhole. What's cornhole, Lawrence? Well, it's a game where you have a board like this with a hole in it, and another one that your opponent uses, and you set them 27 feet apart for some reason, and you both stand next to one of the boards and try to throw bean bags into the hole of the other board, and you get points and stuff. Okay, so I'm going to stand next to my opponent's board, which is broken, and I'm going to throw all of my bags into that hole. And that is not a euphemism. And I've just remembered you have to throw it underarm, which I'm not very good at. And I don't have an actual opponent because my wife's not here and the dogs just want to eat these. What's she doing? Look at that. That was beautiful. Thanks, Heidi.
I was going to say beginner's luck, but he's actually had a few shots now.
Got 3 points. He's supposed to get 7, so I've got to do more. The only question is, do you like cornhole or are you just from the Midwest? No, seriously, I asked you online a couple of days ago, do you like cornhole? And thousands of you answered. The options were absolutely, yes for some reason, no, and the onomatopoeic word for snoring. Today, I can reveal what Americans actually feel about cornhole. So the results are as follows. The least popular response, with 17% of the vote, is no, which would be an encouraging sign for the sport were it not for the fact that the second least popular option was absolutely. In second place, with almost a quarter of the vote, was which means that our winner, with 39% of the vote, is yes for some reason. So just to clarify, the majority of Americans either find it painfully dull or can't articulate why they like it. So riddle me this, America. If so few of you are cornhole fanatics, how is it that the game is not just a holiday pastime, but a bona fide televised sport? This is something I discovered a few years ago while I was channel hopping. As I wrote at the time, they keep cutting to one of the players' wives. Her name is Shelby. Shelby is crying tears of joy after her husband, himself a picture of elation, just cornholed slightly harder than his opponent.
That sounds crazy. Do they get money for this? I assume they do, right?
Anyway, apparently nature really doesn't want me to play cornhole because we're having to abandon this shoot once again for thunder. Cut. If I could go back to any time in history, I'd go back to earlier in the video when I said this. You see, when I saw these things in movies, because the word summer and movies make me think of 3 things. American summer blockbusters, American drive-in movie theatres, and that time 4 years ago when my wife and I combined the 2.
Hey, are you excited?
Yeah, I am, despite my face, because I'm about to get a really authentic 1975 experience. Not only are we at the drive-in theatre, but we're going to watch Jaws. Admittedly from a Prius. On the one hand, this once popular American pastime was something you could only do once it got dark. You see, for the projection to work in any meaningful way, it has to be nighttime, otherwise you can't see what the heck is on the screen. This is particularly true when you're watching me, watching people, watching me on a poorly lit screen. But on the other, this is one of those American summertime traditions that needs to make a comeback.
Hell yeah.
There's something quite beautiful about taking in a Midwestern sunset.
Was it like a thing during the start of COVID lockdowns where they were like, there was sort of like a comeback of the rise of outdoor theatres was like happening again, because obviously you weren't allowed to sit in enclosed areas with groups of people or whatever. I think there was a point where that happened, because I think they are great, honestly.
While watching Mrs. Kittner's baby boy being torn to shreds by a fish.
As somebody who grew up in England, where drive-in movie theatres never really caught on, the whole thing was really novel and unmistakably American. I am unreasonably excited by the fact that they have little speakers outside of the car, and you hook them on to the window frame.
Huh?
The experience was so enjoyable,
Wow.
I danced for
I
the
didn't
first
know that.
time since 1987.
In all, I actually really enjoyed the entire experience.
She made me do this.
And if I could bring back drive-in theatres en masse using my YouTube sensation powers, I would do it in a heartbeat.
And one thing that I'm going to make you do is watch 7...
Well, there we go. This is really cool. I do find these very interesting all the time. In the country, we grew up playing horseshoes because all you needed was 2 pieces of rebar and some horseshoes for your uncle's barn. From your uncle's barn. I remember when cornhole was something terrible that happened to people in prison. 15 years ago, when I first heard people calling a beanbag toss game cornhole, I was absolutely scandalised. When I was young, a bit over half a century ago, we just called the game beanbag toss. I never heard the term cornhole until about 10-15 years ago. I wonder why that's changed. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts on this. Is this a fair representation, or is there other things that I missed out on? Yeah, I don't think any of these really are a UK thing. Yeah, they're definitely not. But yeah, that's what I want to see. I enjoy seeing these differences. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. And until next time, like, subscribe, and peace.